here with my brother, Robert, and his daughter, Charlize, and him came on this recent trip with us last month. And I wanted to interview him because him and his daughter had come 9 years ago, and a lot has changed. But anyway, it was fun to have you and Charlize on this trip. We had a ball just, yeah, having our family there and just sharing in ministry. It was fun just to be able to share Jesus and pull Bobby in and Charlize in when we needed some extra ministry done with the children that we were serving and families. So I wanted to just interview my brother and ask him a couple questions. So my first question is, you were there 9 years ago, and how have things changed since those 9 years? Like, what was different now?
So 9 years ago, we went to a community meeting and spoke, and it was a little more of a novelty at that time to have a community meeting, and we had maybe 100 people there at that meeting. So we were very excited to have 100 people at a meeting that we shared, because there were men and women at this meeting, and commonly you guys had spoken to primarily women because the men weren't showing up.
Yeah.
So so that was the only community meeting that we actually had at that time. So and we shared the gospel at that meeting, which at that time, many of the people there had never heard that before. So this time coming, one of the things that was interesting, so you had meeting after meeting after meeting lined up, and each of the meetings had hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many meetings we actually did.
Four, maybe five.
No, we did more than four.
We did a lot. So these are the meetings where we invite the whole community to come and we feed them a meal. And so a lot of people are coming because they're hungry and want to eat, but they're also curious what the Western people are going to say. And so, yeah, so these are the community meetings that he's talking about where, yeah, we had numerous ones of those in different villages.
Yeah. Yeah, and hundreds, and at some of the meetings, maybe even 1,000 people were showing up, and the difference now is a lot of the people have given their lives to the Lord, and then there are many who, again, are coming for the first time to see what's going on and to hear. So, but it was crazy this time, the huge amount of interest in these areas to come and see what's going on and to hear, because they're hearing about people's lives being changed and they want to know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So story wise, I want you to share one of the stories that caught your attention. So go on ahead and share that.
Okay, so there were a couple of stories that caught my attention significantly. One of them was we went to this area where in this particular village, there were a lot of kids, and we had, we were just going to show up for a few minutes. But when we showed up, these kids were so excited to see us. And we could only be there a few minutes because we had to be somewhere else. So as we left, the kids were chanting, "Please don't leave. Please don't leave." And oh my goodness, broke our hearts. Mm-hmm. And Rebecca said, "Well, I'll fix that." And so she set up another meeting for us to come back the next day and get some time with these kids. Mm-hmm. So the next day we came and we got time with these kids. And I don't know how many kids were there. Over 100 kids. Mm-hmm. And anywhere from really young to maybe 13 years old, 14 years old. At the end of our time there, Rebecca said, "Hey, if anybody wants to tell their stories, our team will be up here and you can come up and share." So the guy that was translating for me and I were in a chair, and each of our team members had that same little grouping. And this gal came up and sat down and shared her story. She was 13 years old. And she shared that her family was very involved in voodoo. I think that her dad was some type of a voodoo high priest. And they, as a result of the teams coming through, they ended up giving their lives to Jesus. And shortly after they gave their lives to Jesus, her father, his family ended up putting significant pressure on him to go back to voodoo. And they were very upset with him. And so he ended up deciding to go back to voodoo. And when he went back to voodoo, shortly after that, he said that his idols demanded a blood sacrifice from him. So he sacrificed her little brother to the idols.
Oh.
And after he sacrificed her little brother to the idols, he ended up getting very sick and he died. So as he was dying, he told his family, the reason that I sacrificed my son to the idols was because they demanded it and I had no choice. And she said, after he died, so he had multiple wives, and one of the brothers from one of his other, a brother from another mother, started putting pressure on her mother that she wasn't supplying enough money for the family, and they needed to sell one of her kids. So she chose this daughter because this daughter was one of her elder daughters. At that time, she was probably 11, something like that. So she sold that daughter, and that daughter went off into the area that she was sold to, and they worked her as on a farm from early morning until late at night. They beat her every day, and she went through horrible things while she was there. But after she was there for a year, and just to give a little backstory, Rebecca's team went door to door in this village and told everybody, just so you know, it's illegal to sell your kids, and we don't want any of you to get in trouble. So if you're thinking about selling your kids, let us know and we will help you. And if you've already sold your kids and you go and get them back, then we will help those kids and we will help your family. So this mother went back and got her daughter because she knew where she was in a neighboring country. And the other thing that gave her impetus to go get the daughter is she'd never received any money. So after a year of not receiving any money, and Rebecca's team going through and letting everybody know this, she went back and she got her daughter. And she told them, you've never given us any money, and you've had my daughter for a year. They said, yes, we have given you money. And come to find out, they were giving the brother from another mother the money, and it was never getting to her. So, but she ended up taking her daughter back to this village, and shortly after she was back, again, one of the brothers from another mother started putting pressure on that mother again, saying, we need you to sell one of your kids. We don't have enough money in this family, and you need to sell one of your kids. And it would help us all. So one day she wakes up and she comes out into the living room. All her stuff is packed. And the brother said, I have a buyer for you, and we're leaving now. And she goes back into her mother and tells her what's going on. And her mother then, and her mother's new husband, goes to the police, and the police come. And the reason that they knew they could go to the police was because they were educated that this was wrong. And so they knew that they could go get help. So they went and they had the team or they had the police come to their house. And when the police came, the police told that other brother, what you're doing is illegal and you can't sell people. And so they looked at the little girl who's now probably 12 years old, and they said, do you want him to go to prison right now? Oh. And she said, no, not right now. But if he does it again, then I want him to go to prison. Wow. So some time went by, and after a little bit of time went by, this brother started carefully putting pressure on her again and said, listen, we need money in our family, and you're the right one to go. You really just need to be okay with this. And she said, she cried out to God and said, God, there's another thing. I'm going to back up just a little bit. When the father went back to voodoo, he came home and he told the family, we're going back to voodoo. And this girl and her mother said, God has been too good to us. We can't go back to voodoo. We have to stay with God. Wow. And he did not force them, even though in that culture it would be common to force. Yeah. He did not force them. He let them make their own choice. So they stayed following Jesus. Wow. And so this little girl now is being pressured again to go, but she's being manipulated carefully. They're not forcing her. They're trying to get her to comply. So she said, she cried out to Jesus and she said, Jesus, I'm just a little girl. Why do I have to be the one to give my life just to support this family? God, will you please help me? Mm-hmm. She said, and shortly after I prayed that, the brother who was putting the pressure on me died. Wow. And she said, so now I'm okay. Wow. This is a 13-year-old little girl. Wow. And this is, everything that she had been through up to this particular day. Just shocking. Wow. I mean, for us as Westerners, this is shocking. Yeah. We don't hear these things. Yeah. And yet for her, in this setting, she's just telling a story of her day-to-day life and what she's been through. Yeah. And we, these kids, you look at their hands, they work their butts off. Yeah. They all work so hard. Here's these little tiny kids that are full of life and don't have anything. Yeah. And they're working their butts off. Yeah. It's very sobering.
Yes. Yeah.
Very sobering.
Wow. Yeah, so that little girl is on our program, and she's one of the ones in the new village that we told you we went into in January. And these are the kids that I had just met them for the first time on this trip. And so that's what he's talking about when we came to I wanted to, the team just meet them as well. So that's when we went in to meet them, and they were just, please don't just come for a moment. Please don't leave. And so, that's where we decided, okay, we got to go back. We got to spend some time with them. And they do, they want to tell their stories and just want to be heard. And they've been through such trauma. And for this girl to just have a voice to be able to share, and for you to just be able to pray with her, each of these team members, Bobby was, I call him Bobby, not Robert, but yeah, Bobby was in the, with his translator, just praying for each of these kids as he's hearing their stories, and each of the team members were doing that and just valuing these precious kids. And their little hearts for Jesus is so, so precious, and very sobering. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So tell another story, brother.
So another story that was very interesting. We're in a meeting, and at one of the community meetings, and we're getting toward the end of our time. This is maybe the second to the last meeting that we're at. And I'm just paying attention as the people are coming in. There's like maybe 50 to 75 people right at the beginning when we get there. They're at the front. They're all excited that we're there. And then everybody else starts streaming in. And I see a lady come in. She's well-dressed. She's a beautiful lady. And she has beautiful shells on her like a shell necklace type of a thing. And I had heard in a book I read by somebody who had been in sorcery and witchcraft and had given his life to the Lord. He talked about these a type of, I'll call her a type of sorceress who is um, they call her a mermaid, and she's typically very beautiful, has a lot of money behind her. And one of the things she's commonly tasked to do is to go into evangelical meetings and just disrupt. And um, and she will come and observe and find her way to get the mix so that she can um, take it out in some way.
So spiritually do something.
Spiritually do something. Or if she's able to even physically become a part. But I see this beautiful woman walk in, and she doesn't really fit because these people are not super well dressed. This is a very poor area. And so this beautiful woman comes in, well dressed, this shell necklace, and I looked and I thought, and she sat in the very back in the center of the row, and I thought, mermaid. And I don't know, it just crossed my mind. And then I see these other beautiful ladies come in and sit right next to her on the same row. Well, at the end of the meeting, Rebecca's doing a repentance and renunciation for people who want to surrender their lives to the Lord and they want to break contracts with darkness and that type of thing. Some people are fervently repenting and renouncing and breaking these contracts with darkness. Other people, you look around and they're not at all happy about what's going on. And in the back row, this lady and the ladies that she was with, they are stone-faced, not smiling, they're not pleased. And it's just interesting to observe. And I just thought, okay, that's interesting. And okay, so the next day we're in another meeting in another area. Now these people are not going from meeting to meeting. Yeah. They're in their particular meeting. And maybe a few people who are very excited will make their way all the way to the next one.
Yeah, they'll have to walk a long way.
Yes, yes. But people start filtering into this meeting, and I see this same lady walk in. And I thought, oh, interesting. And I see where she sits, and then I see her friends walk in, and they all take up their row where they're at. So I'm just observing. It's just interesting. So we have our meeting, and one of the things that Rebecca has the teams do at the end of the meetings is she'll have us each get in, like, I will be with a translator, and we'll have a seat in front of us, and each of the people in our team will have
prayer stations.
A prayer station. Thank you. And so when Rebecca says, if anybody would like to get some prayer, our team is ready to pray with you and you can come forward. Well, Rebecca says when they first started doing that, maybe 2 or 3 people would come forward. But now, so in this particular meeting, there's maybe 1,000 people. And so hundreds of people come forward for prayer. They want to tell you what their great woes are and what they need God's help with. And this is where you really find out their stories. Yeah. It's shocking to hear some of the things that these poor folks are experiencing and going through. But in this particular situation, when Rebecca called us back to our prayer stations, I looked over at the lady next to us, Teresa, and I said, Teresa, you see that lady right over there? And I just described a piece of her clothing, and I said, do you see her? She says, yeah. I said, I really want to pray for her. But we're all getting ready to pray, and people are coming forward now for prayer. She goes, if you feel like you need to pray for her, go pray for her. I thought, that's right. I do need to do it. So I stood up, and I told my translator, you see that woman right over there? And I described her a little bit, and he looked over. I said, yes. And I said, I want to pray for her. But I don't want to go straight to her. I want to just go to her aisle, and I want to start walking down the aisle and just start praying for people as we're making our way her direction. And so he said, okay. So we get into the aisle, and I just start praying for people. And as I'm praying for people, and people see what I'm doing, people start putting their hands out just to get my attention so that I'll come over and pray for them. And now this is becoming a thing. As I'm making my way back there, people are just grabbing me for prayer as I'm on my way back. So, and people are pointing at people and saying, and
Pray for them.
pray for them. And that person will put their hand up, and just obviously there's some kind of a need. And I'm not going to pause to get details. I'm just praying for people, because now I'm seeing this is becoming this is going to take some time. And so what's interesting is I would look up and I would catch this lady's eye just once in a while, just to see that she's still there. And she knows I'm coming for her. I don't know how she knows, but she's getting a little shook up as I'm getting closer and closer. So I finally get to her row. And one of the interesting things is the two ladies next to her who were with her had mouthed the repentance and renunciation prayer.
Oh, you watched her.
I watched, because I'm watching the row.
Yeah.
And I watched and I saw those two women repenting and renouncing.
Wow.
They didn't stand up, but from their seats, they were repenting and renouncing. Wow. So, and the lady that I'm speaking of, she was not. She's just sitting there not pleased with what's going on. So I get to that row and I look at the first lady at the end of the row and I said, I'd like to pray for you. Can I pray for you? She goes, yes. And so with me and my translator, we put our hands on her and we just cried out to God for her. And then the lady next to her, I looked at her, I said, I'd like to pray for you also. Now, this was the first time, as I'm on my way up, this is the first time I'd paused like this. And the person right next to her was this other lady that I'm speaking of. She jumped up, moved her chair out of the way, went to the next row back, and took off.
Wow.
And so I prayed, I called upon God for this other lady, and prayed for her, and then continued to go to the back as though this is just part of the deal, and just continue to go back and just pray for people on the way back to the back of this facility. And as I'm heading back, now all kinds of people are reaching out for prayer, and I realized I can't get to everybody. So now I'm just praying for rows. I'm praying for this row. 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 And these people are just like stretching out, looking for prayer as I'm praying for the rows now on my way back. So we get to the very back of this facility, and I see this lady sneak back in, but she's holding a little baby. And just in my spirit, I just thought, a baby's a diversion. It's not hers. And because she didn't have a baby at the last service, she didn't have a baby at this service, and she'd never had a baby in hand. So this is not her baby. So I told my translator, actually, I noticed she would come back, and my translator looked at me and she goes, she's back. I said, I know. We're going to her right now. So we turned around and we went to her row. And when we went to her row, I looked straight at her and I said, is that baby yours? She goes, no. And I said, I'd like to pray for you. Can I pray for you? And she goes, yes. And she stood up and she came out to the aisle and she dropped to her knees. Wow. And my translator and I put our hands on her and we called upon God for her. Wow. And it was just a sweet moment. And then she looked up at my face. She goes, thank you. And went back to her seat and sat down. Wow. And I felt like God just showed up in a very sweet way.
Yeah, so we were talking to the country director, who's the national there, telling him the story. And I said, what do you think her thought was when she came and bowed down? Here she was running from you, trying to escape being prayed for. And then at the end, when she realized you were going to get to her, then she completely actually went to the aisle and bowed down.
And nobody else did that.
No.
She's the only one who did that.
Yeah. And so the country director, what did he say do you remember what he said?
He said this is not going to be exactly what he said, but as close as I can get. Yeah. In sorcery and witchcraft, if you come up against a higher power, you submit, because otherwise you can drop dead. And he said she realized she was up against a higher power and she was fully submitting. she was not going to in any way
Wow.
put her life in danger. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole different spiritual dynamic that we are not used to on this side. And, we come in with the beautiful message of Jesus, and we don't understand the spiritual dynamics on the other side and what they are experiencing, feeling.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. Yeah. So we're at the end of our podcast time with you. We'll have to do a follow-up. He's going to go back again, and we'll get some more stories, and then we're going to interview his daughter Charlize as well, and she has just a beautiful testimony of what God has done in and through her life as well.
So as we're ending, let me just say that when we went and saw the little kids, now Rebecca has our schedule, boom, 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 lined up. I mean, we're getting up early in the morning, we're having breakfast, we're gone. We're working all day. And because Rebecca, while she's there, she doesn't mess around. She is there to get it done. So when she made an appointment for us to go back, I said, oh, so you're turning our 8-hour day into a 12-hour day. She goes, well, do you want to do it or not do it?
Yeah, to go visit the kids.
To go visit the kids. Well, you can't say no. You got to do it. And I said, Rebecca, it might be good if you gave your teams like a day off in the middle of the trip at some point.
Yeah.
And she said, you can take a day off if you want. She goes, I can't take a day off. She goes, there's too much to do, too much to get done. She said, I'll rest when I get home. But no, there's too much to do.
Yeah.
And she goes, but you can take a day off if you want. Well, I'm not taking a day off.
Yeah, I personally push it, and I realized, my brother was very vocal about, you really go for it here. But that is the reality for me. It's like, I want to utilize every moment to the fullest. And when I have a team on the field, oh man, I want to get 100% out of what, this reinforcement really is what it is. It's reinforcement in the spirit realm, reinforcement in the physical realm, and all that. But
the scripture that came to my mind was where Paul said, I strive together according to the workings of God, which work in me mightily. Mm-hmm. And, that's how it is for Rebecca when she's there. There's a clear anointing on her life. The hand of the Lord is upon her to accomplish a task, to touch lives, and to get things done. And she just jumps into that river and just goes for it. And it's an amazing blessing to see your work ethic, but to also see how the hand of the Lord is upon you strongly to get a lot done. Yeah. And you're running with that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So as we end each podcast, we always want to encourage our listeners in their own walks with the Lord. And so a little challenge or something that you took away from this trip that maybe you want to encourage our listeners with.
Yeah, so the thing that comes to my mind is just what I just said. When Rebecca's, the scripture that came to my mind, I strive together according to the workings of God, which work in me mightily. And there's often times that if we participate in the things that God is stirring on our heart to do, we will see his hand. Mm. If we're just happy that we're stirred, but we don't put feet to it, there's things we'll never see happen. So getting in the habit of speaking out when God puts something on our heart, getting in the habit of going to our neighbor when God puts that on our heart, rather than becoming satisfied with just brushing things off, So I strive together according to the workings of God, which work in me mightily. We don't really see the strong hand of the Lord working in and through our lives unless we're really learning to cooperate with his stirrings and the things he puts on our heart.
It's really good. So, I love that. Well, thank you, my brother.
You're welcome.
It's very great. All right, next time.
Thank you for listening to the Voice with Action podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, would you consider sharing or subscribing to this podcast and leave a 5-star review to help us grow? If you want to reach us or help us end child trafficking in West Africa, go to orphanreliefandrescue.org. That's orphanreliefandrescue.org. See you next week.